Welcome in. Thanks for joining me for yet another edition of Browns Rapid React. As always, we join you immediately after each and every Cleveland Browns football game to give you instant analysis, opinions, and today, specifically, a little venom, a little anger, just a lot of frustration boiling over. My mood about 5 hours ago was a lot happier than my mood as we sit here today. I am your host, Nick Markijohn, at SportsNick27 on Twitter. You can follow me there. All the Johnny Manziel hype slowly leaked out of its excitement balloon today, slowly, methodically, pounded out of us by the Bengals' run game and pressure and inability for the Browns to control either line of scrimmage. It was a complete and utter dud from First Energy Stadium today in downtown Cleveland. The Bengals win 30-0. Yes, folks, the Browns managed 0 points and gave up 30. So the Browns defense that looked so good just a week ago against a really high-powered Indianapolis Colt offense looked equally as bad this week. And yes, there were some injuries. Joe Hayden leaves the game. Justin Gilbert leaves the game. You didn't have K'Wan Williams. So everything compounded for the Browns in that department, but it really wasn't the pass defense that let you down today. It was the front seven, specifically the defensive line, and their inability to control anything and allow linebackers to make plays. Bengals rookie running back Jeremy Hill running all over Cleveland today. And really, they set the tone with that very early on. 25 carries, 148 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's a 5.9 average for Jeremy Hill. And even Gio Bernard in his 15 carries for 79 yards. That's over 5 yards a carry. Just not going to do it. The team allowing 244 yards on the ground for 3 touchdowns on the day. I mean, really, Andy Dalton only 117 yards, no TDs, and a pick. But the Cleveland Browns could not stop the running game. Marvin Lewis had said pretty much all week that the Bengals, in order to flip the script of what had happened just a few weeks ago on that Thursday night football game where the Browns took it to the Bengals, in order for them to do that, Marvin Lewis said, we're going to have to control the line of scrimmage. We're going to have to run the football. It was no secret. And I'm not sure if the entire 53-man roster plus practice squad plus coaching staff and upper management of this Browns organization was caught up in Johnny fever and didn't get a good week of practice in because all we were doing was watching Johnny. And I know that's pretty cliched, and that's the whole thing Twitter was saying today, but maybe it's true. Maybe that's actually what they were doing because it didn't look like they practiced. They definitely didn't improve from last week, although that would have been hard to do to improve, but at least resemble the performance you put in a week ago. At least resemble it. And I think the only, maybe not happy because I know he's a team first guy, but maybe the only guy with any ounce of satisfaction might be the guy wearing jersey number 6. That's Brian Hoyer, now the backup quarterback, saying, hey, you know what? Maybe the problem wasn't all me after all. Let's get to Johnny's line, the story of the day in Cleveland. And you know what? This stat line actually doesn't look as bad as the performance was somehow, but 10 of 18, 80 yards. It's an atrocious average, by the way, and 2 picks and no touchdowns, and just a lot of silly decision making. Johnny was Johnny. He took chances. He threw on the run off his back foot while he was escaping pressure, and he had a third pick called back by a lined up in the neutral zone infraction. So Johnny played poorly, and Johnny is already in the hour since the game ended in his post-game interviews saying he did a bad job today. He's owning it. Coach Pettin said Johnny played like a rookie and looked like a rookie and made mistakes like a rookie makes. And so really all in all, the Johnny haters are winning today compared to the Johnny lovers. Again, your final score 30-0. The Bengals defense flashing the money sign multiple times today, at least a half a dozen that I can think of. And again, that's one of those things that's kind of jumping the shark and getting awfully old, awfully fast. But, they had a lot of pride. That whole Bengals roster, they were saying immediately after the game, some quotes coming out in post-game interviews that, the Browns embarrassed them a few weeks back on Thursday Night Football in Cincinnati. And it wasn't necessarily a Johnny-focused thing, but they certainly weren't going to let the Browns have a repeat performance with Johnny under center. They didn't want that double whammy, I suppose, getting smacked around again by the Cleveland Browns. And then the icing to that proverbial cake would be the fact that Johnny was under center in his first ever start. So the Bengals were up to the task. The Bengals took it to the Browns, and now your Cleveland Browns are eliminated from the postseason. I'm not sure if the math kind of holds true to that. They're done. They were done, I guess. From my mouth, even 2 weeks ago, they were done, and it's official now. They're done. They're 7-7. Even if they win the last two, they're at 9-7, and I don't believe they hold many of the tiebreakers. Even if some of these teams ahead of the Browns can falter in the Browns' favor, it just doesn't seem likely. And it doesn't seem likely that the Browns can win their last two games against two teams that are still playing for things. Don't look now, but virtue of that tie they had earlier against Cincinnati, the Carolina Panthers are in control. Not in control, that's the wrong words, because I know Atlanta has some of that control based on their schedule the rest of the way. But the Carolina Panthers, I believe, lead the division by a half a game right now. So they're certainly still playing for a playoff berth. They should, at least today as we sit, and all indicators are pointing to the fact that Cam Newton should maybe be able to play next Sunday. So they might have their full squad and playing for something. And then, of course, the last week of the season, week 17, the Browns travel to the Inner Harbor there in Baltimore and have to take on the Baltimore Ravens, who again won today and are hanging in for a wild card spot. So the Browns are done. The Browns are not showing like they're a team that can compete at this point. The offense is in complete disarray. The coaching staff should deserve a lot of that blame. The play calling from Kyle Shanahan, who has frankly been very, very innovative and on the spot with a lot of his calls this year. Part of the reason why the Browns have had success, but in the last couple of weeks, just not helping the cause, and he certainly didn't today. A weird game plan. Didn't get Johnny on the run as much as I would think. It felt like he got Hoyer more on the run when he was in there than when Johnny was in there today, which is a little odd since Johnny has the one that actually has the wheels that can actually turn and get you some yards. So a lot of head scratchers there. Mike Pettin didn't seem too fired up. It just seemed like a complete and total lack of focus, lack of urgency or playing for the moment from the entire organization. So your final score, 30-0, the Bengals from First Energy Stadium. And, I can't think of much today at all that would be that type of silver lining. Well, at least we had blank. I really cannot come up with one thing. Not one thing. Hey, how about this? Our kicker couldn't miss a field goal today. Of course, as we know, Billy Cundiff released and Garrett Hartley signed. We didn't even get to take a look at Garrett Hartley in a field goal situation because we scored 0 points. Ay. Not sure it can get any lower. In fact, I believe this is the lowest I've felt after a Browns game, not only all season, but in quite a while. And it's probably because hope and a little bit of expectation are part of the formula now, because we have 7 wins, but it's not happening. Not happening. Playoffs are done. The Browns are done. We're going to get a 2 more week sample size from Johnny Football, and we'll see if anything can come from that. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting week of practice in Berea, and it'll be interesting to see which team, the team that competes and plays hard like they did defensively against Indianapolis, through all phases of the game like they did against Cincinnati the first game on Thursday Night Football. If that team shows up, the Browns have a shot. If the team that shows up is the team that we saw today, don't even tune in, folks. It won't be pretty. So once again, for your host, Nick Markijohn at SportsNick27, you can find all of our wonderful podcasts, and you'll be joining I'll be joining you again later on this week to kind of preview that Panther game and talk some more about this debacle that was. That'll be in our Orange and Brown breakdown. But For this edition of Brown's Rapid React and every edition of Orange and Brown Breakdown and Rapid React, you can find us on TuneIn, Zune, iTunes, Stitcher, all of the wonderful places that podcasts can be found. So, again, 30-0 from First Energy Stadium. The Bengals absolutely take it to the Browns. And Cleveland planning for the offseason, most likely at this point. We'll talk to you next week. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go.